Welcome, everybody. How are you guys today? Woo! I apologize if I look a little crazy. Literally got off work like a few minutes ago, and so I'm still like, kind of frazzled. I just threw my hair into a puff, so it is what it is. But I'm super happy to have the show again tonight. And super happy for the guests that I have on the show tonight. I have LaToya Hurley. I've been working with her as a blogger through PR. She invites me to a lot of events for her clients. We've worked together for a few years now. And I recently just found out she's a career changer like myself. Like I'm kind of in it and she's on the other end of it. And so I definitely wanted to bring her on to chat with you guys about that, her change in career. Also, she's just full of great marketing tips. And I just want to hear from her as well about how like her business and her, personal life and everything went through the pandemic that we had last year. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. So give me 1 second here. Hey, LaToya, how are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
Great. Welcome to Shasie's World Live.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! I do apologize if I seem a little tired and a little like crazy, but I'm trying, and I might still be adjusting some things. But thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. I'm super excited for my readers to meet you and to hear your story. So,
I'm excited.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, like a little bit about your history and your background, and just go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I relocated to Houston back in 2003. Made a shift in location, thought that Houston would be a better location to expand my career. And so traveled here, started out in transportation, and that's where I got my first taste of working in PR and marketing at Waste Management. Through the changes in the economy, eventually was laid off from Waste Management and transitioned into oil and gas. And at that juncture in the road, worked as their senior compliance analyst for 7 years before I decided to make the leap into full-time entrepreneurship. And so that is what brought me here. But I am this year in April, 2 years into full-time entrepreneurship. And I don't think I'd ever go back to working in corporate America unless it was just the absolute best opportunity ever. And so that kind of summarizes my career. And on the personal side, I am a mother of two. Both of my kids are grown. So it made some of this a little bit easier to transition. My youngest is 18, daughter, sister. And so I just try to be an all around good friend and partner to the individuals that are in my life. And so that pretty much summarizes it.
Well, that's exciting. So I guess I didn't realize you were in waste management before you ended up in oil and gas. I actually was looking at them when I decided not to do engineering anymore. Well, when I was still deciding whether I wanted to not do engineering anymore, I was looking at some jobs with waste management and stuff like that. So I definitely sorry for your layoff, but it does seem like I think everything happened for a reason. It seems like you're much happier now and excited for your career and where you're at right now in your life and living here. So that's exciting.
I agree. Actually, and I tell people when I talk about the layoff, it was actually one of the best things that could have happened. A lot of times we don't realize how comfortable and complacent that we have become in a space. And you have to be sometimes moved from one space to the other in order for you to make the necessary steps for you to get to your purpose. And so I feel like now at this juncture, I am walking in my purpose. Versus when I was at Waste Management, I can honestly tell you, and it had nothing to do with the job itself, but I was just unhappy and really still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I am extremely appreciative for them laying me off because I would have never gotten here.
Right. It does seem like it, people are like, oh, I got laid off or I got fired or something. And it might seem like the end of the world, but honestly, sometimes it's that step that needs to happen to force you to get to where you're really supposed to be. And nobody knows more than me. I've definitely had some bad job situations. It's like my third time not working out a job, and I'm just the happiest I ever have been in my life. So, well, you said you moved to Houston from New Orleans. Would you ever move back to New Orleans, or do you like Houston better?
No. I love Houston better, especially the city is not the same either. And so after the storm, Hurricane Katrina, nothing is really what it was. And so it doesn't have that vibrant feel. And they are bringing things back and revitalizing certain parts of the city, but it just doesn't have that I'm at home feel and touch for me. And so Houston is now home, and I don't envision being anywhere else. I like it here.
Yeah, I like it here too. So, I'm a transplant. I'm not from here originally. Anyway, so what do you like to do for fun? I know you said you have 2 kids that were kind of older and that helped you with your transition. We're going to get to that, talking a little bit about your actual career change transition period. But what kind of fun things you like to do here in Houston?
Oh my God, there is so much to do, but I think at this phase, drinking wine and partaking in the eatery, Houston has a huge restaurant market. And so that is one thing, coming from somewhere that has amazing food to go somewhere that also has amazing food. It was so easy to get acclimated into Houston, but I love it here. I love to travel to different places with friends and eat. Specifically, even now as we travel to different cities, that's one of the first things. We're on Yelp looking for food places. Where can we go? And I'm at that point now because, in your 20s, it was, okay, let's go to Vegas. Let's go to Miami. Let's do the hot spots. Now I'm like, I want to do things that I normally wouldn't do. I want to go places that I normally wouldn't go. And jumping off the cliff to become an entrepreneur made me create like a bucket list. So now let me go to the bucket list and check things off. But yes, I love to just travel to different places in Houston and eat.
Girl, I love to eat too. I love it. And I'm like you. In my 20s, I went to Miami, Vegas multiple times, South Padre Island. I did all that stuff. And now I'm just like, the most I would do is like a little staycation downtown, or I might want to drive 4 hours to Dallas or something. But I'm like, I don't want to be on no plane and all that craziness. But yeah, and definitely eating. I definitely have not the same size I was when I moved here because of the eating here.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I know. I can relate.
It kicked in real hard. So, you kind of touched on a little bit about it. You went from waste management into oil and gas, and then to where you are now. What was it? What was that final stroke at that job, like the oil and gas job, where you were like, this is not what I want to do. I want a career change. And how did you decide on public relations? And well, I guess I should back up. Was that your first career idea that you wanted to transition into, was public relations? Or were you just kind of like, I'm done with oil and gas and I don't know what I want to do right now?
So strange enough, it didn't start out as wanting to do PR. Originally, when I started the company, it was, I want to do marketing. And while I was at the oil and gas organization, I started the company and did both in conjunction at the same time, and then figured out exactly what I wanted my niche and specialties to be. PR came later on. I ended up hiring a young lady that PR was her specialty. And she was like, you're practically doing PR now. So why not add that as a service offering to what you already have existing? So I added it along. So it wasn't until maybe 2 years in that I added PR, and then it became a PR and marketing firm. Right. But there was not one thing about the oil and gas company. The funny thing is, I tell people, I said, that we're complacent and you grow to love people so much that you can become stuck. I cried on my last day, the entire day. We're talking from start to finish. If you've ever worked in an open, what they call concept floor setting, we worked in these dog bones. And so we were intimately familiar with each other because we had to scream across the dog bone to talk to each other. And this was my family. I spent 12 to 13 to 14 hours of my days with them. So these were people that I loved. And it was, even now, like as I'm telling this story, because that last day was so difficult, it is very heartbreaking for me and very sad leaving them. But I think if I had to pick a juncture for that particular, for my career, I came to a fork in the road. And like you said, you're an engineer, and I worked in a department to where my position was very specialized, but there really was not a path forward for me based on where I was at. I wanted to promote in my career, but in order to move into some of the other positions in my department, you had to have an engineering degree, which I don't have. My background and degree is in business management with a concentration on marketing. And so it was either take a lateral position in a different department, which would have taken me back down the path of marketing, and I would have had to work an additional 5 years before I got a promotion to start moving in the direction that I wanted to move in. So taking a lateral position, you're like, it's not doable, it's not foreseeable for me. And so we started looking, and my director was very supportive of what I wanted to do. He said, what is it that you want to do within the organization? And we started looking across the organization. And so I always tell people, it would have had to literally be a scenario that God sent where a position was created specifically for me in order for me to have promoted within the group that I was in. And so after I looked at a comparable position and a career path in marketing there, I then came to the conclusion that I was doing a lot of project management type of work in my role as a senior compliance analyst, and said, well, hey, how about I explore the option of getting my PMP, and maybe I'll move into the project management sector. And I went to go talk to him, and as I said, he's so supportive. And so he had a very candid conversation with me that someone else had come in and asked to take the class, and he had told them no. And he said, there's already a misconception that you are my favorite here. So if I were to allow you to do it, this is not an approved course, so it's subject to supervisory approval, it would seem like I'm playing the favorites. And so I just need some time to work some things out. And in our minds, I'm like, I don't have time. At that time, I'm 35. I'm like, I don't have that kind of time to wait for you to make a decision. And so, and I didn't say that, but in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. And so it just brought me to a space of, okay, LaToya, you're now faced with the decision, and this is where I come to that fork in the road. Either you can stay here, and you really don't know what the next steps are for you. You're just really floundering and figuring it out. Or you can now devote all of your attention into your business and see which one gets you to the point that you want to get to first. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to devote all of this energy into my business. And if I get to the point where I match my income in the business as what I'm making in corporate, then I'm going to take the leap in. And we're talking burning the candle at both ends of the stick. I'm working, 40 hours or more at the corporate job. If you've ever worked in oil and gas, we've got, unintended releases. There's all kinds of things. Regulatory requirements have been increasing. And so the workload was just steadily increasing. So the amount of time that I would spend either in the office or working from home on corporate work was increasing. And I'm out at events and shaking hands, like I like to say, and kissing babies and making things happen on the PR and marketing side and executing for clients. And then I got there. So then it was like, okay, we didn't plan, once we got there, now what's next? And I go out, I make a phone call to a friend of mine. They're asking me like, hey, how can, and it's a sales pitch. They're like, oh, how can I help you? Blah, blah, blah. They're trying to offer me their services. And I was like, hey, you know what? I do need some help. I need help in finding a financial planner so that I can start to figure out how I pivot into my business, because I don't want to take the leap and then have to come back. The last thing you want to do is like, you've ever seen people that have that it's going away party, and then like 6 months they're back and you're like, oh my God, she's back.
every athlete that retires and they come back, but like, I'm gonna try it again. I've had several people leave and try different industries, come back to engineering. Yeah, I gotcha. Yep, I've seen it.
So I didn't want that to be my story. So I'm like, okay, LaToya, make sure you get this right the first time. And so I took an additional year to work with a business coach, which is also my financial advisor, to really set my business structure how I wanted it, tell me how much I needed to have in reserve. And so then I decided to take the leap. And I remember the day that I told my boss, it's clear, it's like it was yesterday, we are out for lunch. If you worked in oil and gas, Christmas is when everybody takes the entire month off. And so he's getting prepared to go on a skiing trip. And he's got me running around with him, picking up skiing gear because the office is completely empty before he leaves for vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we go to lunch and we sit down and he's like, we're just talking and it's a great conversation and he's telling me all the plans for next year. And this was at the time, 2019 coming into 20. And I said, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time working here. I really appreciate you as a person because I feel like you have grown me as a professional. And so I feel obligated to tell you that when you come back from vacation on January 1st, that I will be turning in my notice. I am giving you 30 days, but everybody,
some people don't even do that.
Everybody at the office. Yeah, everybody at the office knew that I had my own business, so it wasn't like a surprise conversation. I think it surprised him that I decided to quit because a lot of people never expect you to leave, and it caught him off guard. I told him, I said, I love you guys, and so I will give you some additional time if you would like, but we'll start out with 30 days and then go from there. I ended up staying 4 months.
Oh, wow.
So, well, this is that safety blanket. Like, don't burn the bridge just in case you got to go back. So I stayed for 4 months. I ended up finding my replacement, trained my replacement, and then left after my replacement got settled. And it was a person that was doing what I was doing at another company. So it wasn't a hard training process. It was just training them on the way of the organization that I work for. And that is how I arrived. April, at the end of April was my first time full-time being an entrepreneur. And on that last day, everybody in the department set up and told me bye and clapped, and they walked me down to HR to do my exit interview. And it was just one of those. it was a moment.
Not my experience.
That's what made it so difficult to leave, because it's like, oh my God, I'm leaving my family. And that's how I felt, like I'm leaving my family behind. But yeah, that is what got me here. And oh my God, I'm crying. But yes, here I am.
Aww. No, I can see like that's so emotional for you. But and that's such an amazing story too. Not only that, like you didn't burn that bridge, they were supporting you. And I don't even know what it's like to have a boss that just like enamors you so much that they're super sad that you're leaving. But I know deep down that I know they would have loved to keep you, but I know they know deep down the best thing for you is for you to be happy and pursue your own dreams and stuff like that. And I guess I thought you have been an entrepreneur, just full-time entrepreneur longer than that, just because I've known you've been doing the innovative marketing for a while. You've had it for a while. So I think I just assumed that was what you're doing full-time for so long now. So that's awesome. That's amazing. But maybe not the best timing, because when you decided to do that, that was like right when COVID was like, oh, I'm gonna go out on my own, and here comes COVID. So you said you struggled a little bit even with the financial planner. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like how it's not all glamorous, just quitting and doing a career change, even when you planned? So for me, I didn't get the plan, but
nothing prepared. When they say that term, like, oh, this is not a drill, this is it. Nothing prepares you for actual full-time entrepreneurship. There's no amount of training that you can give. There's no handbook that they can give you. And so it is a very scary moment. You have to be very mentally and emotionally grounded. That is the best advice that I can give you. Like if you don't have a prayer life, now's a great time to start, because a lot of it is tenacity. I can't honestly say that every day was perfect. I had clients, and even on the day that I decided to leave corporate America, and this is something you never forecast for, one of the clients that I was working with decided, we were getting ready to execute her contract. I had a good book of business, and she decided, hey, I'm working on my doctoral degree. They told me that I have to be more focused, and so I can't pursue the PR campaign. And I had several clients that had to take a step back, and those are things that you can't forecast for. And so having to get out here, go bring in new business to recoup that was money that I had already put on the books per se, and clocked, because I knew that we had already had a conversation, and I never thought to myself, oh, she's going to have this issue where time becomes a problem and it keeps her from pursuing this. And so that was one, getting your pipeline full. Also you are now everything. So you had an accounting group, you had an AP group, and all these other things, a collections group, a sales group. You are now sales, you are now customer service, you are everything. And I can remember that piece of it, the financial piece. And I think actually, if I had to say anything, the customer service and financial piece were actually the two biggest things, and not that I struggled with it, but two of the biggest things that became very challenging because you're both. So having customers call and want you to give more than what is the scope of work, and then them making decisions or slow pay, or just all of the financial challenges that can potentially come. And I can give you a whole list from chargebacks to slow pays to NSF. All of that are things that you just kind of don't think about because you're not the one.
Yeah.
When you're in a corporation that you're handling. And those were the two biggest things that I would say that nobody really prepared me for. And maybe I was just had rose-colored glasses. When I was in corporate, it wasn't really a conversation because I had a income to support me. So if there was a client that didn't align with something that I wanted to do, and when I say something with my core values, it was a very easy decision to say, I don't want to work with you. But true integrity is when now this is my sole income, and now I got to make that same decision. Wow. I got to stare at you and say, it's a no. And it's like you're holding back the tears, like, it's a no.
What's your money? I know I'm dealing with you. We are not a good fit. But can you still just like leave the money on the table? Girl, I can only imagine.
Yeah, that would be the thing that I would say nobody prepared for. Exciting, but those were the things. And then also, I never thought in a million years that we would come into a pandemic. So just when I felt like I was starting to get a little bit balanced and had figured out checks and balances and procedures to counter those things, we then come into the pandemic. And I'm like, oh my God. What? And it's even funnier because I'm sitting down at a restaurant with someone right before this happened. And this is when nobody knew that the pandemic was coming. It was still kind of like March. And this guy is coughing. We're at Red Lobster and this guy is coughing and we're making jokes about it. And it was like, oh my God, oh, what if he has the coronavirus? We need to move. And then the following month, it's like, it's doomsday. And I'm thinking to myself, that was God telling you, don't crack those jokes. It wasn't funny.
It's like, oh, you want to joke about COVID? I'm going to show you COVID.
Exactly. And that was a whole nother thing. But I always tell entrepreneurs, if you can weather COVID, you can weather anything. This is the true test of your tenacity. You can weather anything.
And not only that, it also just is going to force your creativity because no one in their right mind, brick and mortars, entrepreneurs, corporations, everybody was affected. Wasn't just entrepreneurs, like everybody had to reinvent themselves, start doing meetings all online. Companies who never did Zoom meetings before had to do. Everybody had to reinvent themselves. So it really forced you, especially for marketing, because I know a lot of what you do, like you just invited me to the spa group. So a lot of what you do for your clients is like having events and having people come out and look at it and talk about it and experience it. And so now like we're getting ready to kind of do that again, but it's like things have changed. Now you have to have all these sanitary measures, and maybe you would have invited 100 people. Now you can only invite 10. So now you got to like reinvent yourself and reinvent how you do PR in this world. And I was kind of like you. I was nervous, but I guess I was like, I was just going to stay in China. And then like, I was still trying to go to South by Southwest. I was working on getting my press passes because my future husband, Chris Evans, he plays Captain America, was going to be there. And girl, I was going to go there and shoot my shot. I was on the press page like, and I was like, and then they were like, well, and then South by Southwest was teeter-totter. They kept posting like, we're not sure we're going to keep going. I was like, y'all better stay open so I can see my future husband. And next thing you know, we get South by Southwest is canceled. So I'm like, dang. And I still really was just like not nervous about it. But then I guess the quarantine and then just finally having to be forced to work from home, because I was still in corporate by then too. So I know what you mean about working in oil and gas and the fires. It really makes me wonder if I would have had a better experience in oil and gas if I wasn't an engineer. Have worked in a different branch of it. But I mean, I admire you. You stuck with it and look, and like now hopefully we're coming out the other end of it. People are getting vaccinated, and hopefully we can be better prepared if anything else happens like this in the future. Knock on wood. And it just seems like you know. I love the tips. Do you think, like for me, because I'm a career changer who kind of went into another job, not in entrepreneurship, I definitely think it's probably way harder to do a career change into being an entrepreneur versus a career change into like just getting another like 9 to 5. And I'm not even really in 9 to 5. I'm in retail now, and I'm definitely not even making close to what I was making. So I would say the hardest thing for me personally is like the loss of income, but I'm not ready to go into entrepreneurship. I think your tips are really great, especially if you're leaving a corporation to run your own business. And that alone, like you said, you wear all the hats. The business is you, especially now until you get to that point where maybe you can hire on some more people and things. But like, yeah, it's all you. What kind of things did you do during the pandemic personally and for your business, maybe just to stay motivated and keep the business going, keep your clients motivated to keep going?
So I do want to touch on that, but I do want to go back because actually the career change for me was actually coming from waste management into oil and gas. And so I didn't go into the long, I gave you the short version of it, but I think this is going to be more applicable for you in this scenario when it talks about career change. And then I'll talk about staying motivated.
Perfect.
When I changed from waste management, I had been there for 5 years, and in my mind thought I'd be there for the rest of my career. I'd build my way up the corporate ladder, and from there continue to move ahead in whatever my position was in marketing. And that just didn't happen. And quite frankly, in today's climate, you have to be willing to leap, and jump off the cliff. And I always accredit this to waste management, that they are the reason that I don't have a fear factor. Once I got laid off, it taught me how to pivot quickly, be self-sufficient. If I needed to save, how do I make those changes, and making them quickly and not waiting down to the last minute. And so I always accredit that back to waste management. But at any rate, when I did make the change, I got signed up with a contract shop. And when I got hired on at the oil and gas company, I didn't go in the capacity of marketing, but my background from being in marketing was very robust. It wasn't just marketing. And I always tell people, when you go into a career, over-deliver. And I over-deliver in everything that I do, even as an entrepreneur. But exactly. I get this opportunity to go interview at the company that I was with. And I don't mind saying their names. I'm talking around it. But I go interview with Enterprise Products. And I have the initial interview with their HR person, and she told me, she's like, "Oh my God, you're great. However, we're not hiring for, anything in marketing." And at the time I was interested in this analyst position that they had. My background kind of fit into the analyst, and I had worked temporary prior to going there in another analyst type of role. And that was, like I said, I had a robust background. Come in, interview with the director of marketing, and it's a woman. Women are great. We connect. Her name was Danica. And she's like, "Oh my God, we had this great synergy." She's like, "We've got to get you back. And when you start moving up in your career, you do a series of interviews." So I went through the interview with HR, the interview with Danica, and then I had a third and I think a fourth interview before they ended up making their decision. And she told me, and this was where the walk of faith, she said, "I want to bring you in. You have a very robust background, but it's truly as an administrative assistant. And so are you comfortable with that? However, you do have my word that I do want to hire you full time. And when I do, it's going to be as an analyst, but let's see what you can do." And I literally worked as an admin for a year, I think almost a year and a half. And I came in, and when I say bust my butt, they had 2 analysts, and I was doing the job of the 2 analysts and then my job as an admin. And so I would take on my free time, because I wasn't in oil and gas, and read all of the information. I was reading the regs so that I could understand. I was understanding, because what I worked on was their T4 process. I was understanding the T4s so I could acclimate myself and just learning the reports. And I re-engineered some of their reports and then also some of the analyst reports to make it a little bit more user-friendly, automated some things so that it wasn't so difficult to put together. And that's what actually got me in the door. I came in and I was just their analyst. Yep. I came in as just their compliance analyst. And by that time, Danica had actually got promoted. So she moved from our group to another group, and they brought in a new director. And so he looked at me. He had worked with me for maybe, before he hired me, 2 months. And he said, I'm not going to lie, you've done an amazing job. And so we do now have the headcount to hire somebody. You can either come in as my admin, or you can be my analyst. And the decision that I was faced with was, coming into being your analyst is a nuance for me. And so there's the opportunity that I could fail. So this was a very scary, vulnerable moment for me, because I'm like, the admin work was easy because I had worked as an analyst. So I'm like, this is easy work. But I'm coming into something new, which is going to really challenge me to rise to the occasion. And so I made the decision to be his analyst. And I just continued to knock it out of the park. And when I say knock it out of the park, go the extra mile, learn the other departments, learn the whole process, not just what I was doing. And they continued to promote me. And that's why it was such a hard, I won't say fall from grace, but a hard decision to make, to leave, because they had taken care of me so well. I moved up to senior analyst, and I'm within 5 years. So the last 2 years, I'm kind of like, okay, what am I doing? And that's what made me want to, why I was thinking so hard about what's next for my career, because in 5 years, I had gone from admin to analyst to senior analyst. And I'm like, I need to understand where my career is going. That's what's important to me. So fast forward. The biggest thing is that ability to, or that willingness to go the extra mile. During the pandemic, that's what kept me motivated, that drive, determination. And I'm not telling you I didn't have days where I just woke up and I'm like, God, what am I doing? I'm looking at these 4 walls. And because I think I went through all of the stages of grief. So first it was disbelief. Like, this is not happening. And so the first month, you're kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And I probably spent a lot of time in the bed, drinking a lot of wine. Well,
like the wine.
We get to the end of, I guess, April. We're coming into May, and then you start to come out of this, and reality sets in. Like, okay, I'm servicing clients. I'm still kind of trying to pull it together, and I'm having these kind of like, oh my God, days. And so then it's like, okay, LaToya, this is your source of income. So when Harvey hit, I'm sitting at home, but I got a corporate check coming in. I don't have a corporate check. And so the motivator for me was, the motivator is, you don't have an income coming in. And so you can exhaust your savings and, 401k, but there's no foreseeable end to this. And that was the really, really scary part. So now it was, how do we create solutions for clients so that they can weather the storm, and then also for myself. And so I had to pivot my business model, start creating solutions that were relevant to where we were at. So digital solutions, how do I leverage this internet market so that I can, A, sell my services, figure out what that looks like now, and then B, help my clients to sell their products and services as we're trying to go through this pandemic. And so that was really what it was more than anything. Just, it's a sink or swim. And I'm one of those kind of people. In order for me to do something, it's typically going to be, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. I'm not going to straddle the fence. And so it's a sink or swim. And so the pandemic just forced me to have to be more creative with the solution, so I didn't sink, because there was no other option. When it came down to it, it's like, hey, if I can't pay the house note, then I'm homeless. And not that I don't have money, but that's how I always envision things.
No, I'm like you, like the same way, because I'm in the same boat. So I have a lot of savings, of course, and whatever from the corporate world and 401k. So I know like if I absolutely got to the point of where I like, you know, this part-time job's not cutting it, like I definitely changed my lifestyle. Like I'm not paying for things I used to except for my little container store purchases. But I did get 40% off. So to me, it's like, it's making my place come play. And I feel like I can get a lot more done if my place is organized. But same thing, yeah. It's like you got to sink or swim, and it is nice for like, especially for people like us. You know, we do have family, and we know we have friends that won't let us out on the street, and it's a little bit harder with COVID because you're like, okay, who would I actually go stay with now during the pandemic?
Yeah, exactly.
If I got evicted or something, where am I gonna go? But at the end of the day, you know, you still have a support system. A lot of people don't have that, and I'm like you. I'll work wherever I gotta work. Like again, like I'll go to McDonald's. Like I'll work wherever I have to work. I'm about to pick up I'm about to try to go apply for a third job for social media marketing manager, just because I like social media and doing graphic design, and I'm also studying for interior design. So I'm like doing all these little things to just have random income streams. But I feel like that's the other part too, is like having a second idea for an income stream, staying motivated. And I'm sure so many people, like you said, had days where I had days, even when I was in corporate America, getting my check. Like there were just days I was just so sick of working from home, not seeing people, doing work I didn't really care about. The only thing that was really keeping me through was the fact that I still had a job, and so many people didn't have a job because of COVID, had laid off so many people. And I was just trying to count my blessings. Like, I know you hate engineering. I know you don't like this work, but like right now you're probably one of the few people who are still getting an income and are still able to work from home, which which was nice during the pandemic. So, you know, it's just the pandemic. Nobody expected it. And like I said, like whether you're an entrepreneur, you work a corporation, a restaurant, everybody got affected. So everybody had to adjust. And so it's so great that you had these tips to keep your clients motivated. So to swing kind of into that, how did you come up with the name Innovative Marketing Group? Innovating Marketing Group.
You know, it was a random conversation with my brother because he was the one who got me to start. And it was we're talking on the phone, and this is literally how the company started. He's like, oh, you're helping everybody, you know, with these innovative ideas for their marketing. Cute. You should start, just go get your DBA. And literally that's how it started. And so I went and got my DBA, and that's where the name came about. And it actually started out as innovating marketing and management, and then evolved when the PR leg came on to Innovating Marketing Group. And
that's what I remember. I feel like I remember when we first interacted with IMN. I totally
yes, it was.
I feel like when we first started interacting, I remember I was like, it was IMN, wasn't it? Yeah. Now that you say that, totally remember. Yeah.
Yes, it was.
But I like IMG too. Like the different, and your logo that you got back there. I like your logo.
I love the new logo. So the logo kind of to me represented like the new innovating. It was more, I guess, up to date. The other logo was great, but it was more, you know, it was a little, it had an older feel. And so I was like, we need to get a little bit more modernized.
I love it. I love it. I love your new logo and the graphics and everything. That's kind of the things I like to do. I'm actually working on a new logo design for another blogger right now. She's relaunching, and I'm working on her logo design. And that stuff is kind of fun for me too. So I have like all these interests: interior design, graphic design. And I'm just like, what can I do with the things that I love and actually just do it? I'm not ready to have my own business in either one of those yet. I mean, the graphic design is kind of like a little, like every now and then someone calls me, can you do this? And I'm like, okay, it's going to be this much, but it's not. I haven't thought about I did try to take it mainstream in between the last job changes, and then it was that wasn't for me. But I got back to corporate America, and I got used to my little corporate check. But this time I'm going to stick with it because you're motivating me. Stick with it.
Okay.
What kind of clients do you represent? So I know I've worked with you on some of your clients. I know the spa is one of yours. Tell us a little bit about your clients. I know there's a lady that we want to bring on the show that you have coming up too.
So my clients have an array of different backgrounds. One of the young ladies, like you said, that I'm looking to bring on the show is Chef Shasie. She was just recently on Ready to Love, and she is a celebrity chef here in Houston. She has prepared meals from everybody from Matthew Knowles to many different celebrities, and she does private chef work for athletes and different individuals. And so it's anybody that is considered high profile that requires somebody to manage their image. And so the chef Shays, they're also brick and mortar locations. So my spa client, Pure Vichy. But it's just such an array, and God has just blessed me, because a lot of people ask, like, what's your niche? And I don't necessarily have like one thing. Like, the other day, I recently signed Jay Bradley from the show, also from Ready to Love, but he's in the real estate sector. And so he is a high profile figure that does things in the community. He also just got nominated for the HAR board, but just has a great portfolio. And so individuals that require somebody to manage their image and get them media placement so that they can continue to grow your brand. Once you get to a certain level, and this can even be on the corporate side of things, because there are PR people in corporate where either the company or the person requires messaging and somebody to really connect you with the community. That's where a publicist is going to come in, because I do want to also, my biggest thing was, I don't want to just work with individuals when I decided to leave corporate, but I also want to work with companies, whether that be small business, mid-size, or large organizations, because my background is in that corporate arena. And even for my small business owners, and then also the personalities that I represent, I want to bring the professional feel to it. And so a lot of times people think entertainment and PR and the clients that I represent. So like I said, the celebrity chef shades. When you think about celebrities, a lot of people tie that into chaos. And those individuals, they do, because they've never had any sort of structure. And business for these celebrities, it looks a little bit different. And so that is one of the things that I always share or present as my strong suit or value proposition. I have a corporate background. I understand the importance of structure, and that's what I'm going to bring to your organization. We are going to have timelines. We'll hit milestones, and we will do touch points where we will check to make sure that we're hitting those milestones. And so everything from spas, celebrities, athletes, anything that you can think of. But specifically what I love is my nonprofit clients. So a nonprofit is very near and dear to me. It is my opportunity to give back. So the work that I do in the nonprofit sector is absolutely amazing. Some of the organizations that I've worked with, CSTEM, let me think of who else, Lilydale Workers, which they did something during Super Bowl with the children here. And so just that nonprofit work really touches me, because like I said, it's the feel-good stuff. It's the stuff where you're in the community, boots on the ground, and you get a chance to give back. So that is kind of my portfolio.
Well, I love it. You're not limiting yourself. And it's kind of like project management. So when I was a project manager, I feel like the skills are transferable across industries, because if you're doing a project in engineering, it's got the same rules as far as like budget, schedule, whether it's an engineering job or an accounting project or a construction project. And I like the fact that you like, because there are some like PR firms that are like, oh, we only do fashion designers, or we only represent fashion models. But I love the fact that, like, girl, I'm gonna come to you when I make it.
And then, look, I'm about to say that's another sector. So Kisa, I represent her. She's in fashion, but yes, we do everything. And so thank you.
Like when if Shasie's World Live blows up, I'm gonna be like, LaToya, I need you to manage my image. Yes. Like my ultimate goal is I've always wanted to have my own TV show. Like I kind of want to have like a Great Day Houston, like Deborah Duncan. I got the bug when I was on there a few years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have my show, bring on guests. This is like my way of doing it, having my show, bringing on guests. And I love meeting people and hearing everybody else's stories. Your story is so motivating me. Congratulations to you on everybody you're representing. That's so amazing. I can't wait to come to the spa, because girl, this retail life,
it's on the body.
I was not prepared. Even like trying to like just use my hands and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I'd be walking off like, I feel like I'm an 80-year-old woman. I'm like, I'm 36. It shouldn't be this bad. I really need to get in shape. But girl, I'm like, let me come to is it Pure Vichy? Vichy?
Yes.
Pure Vichy. I was like, Vichy. I was like, ooh, let me swing on in there. Yeah, so I love the tips that you're giving everybody that you gave to us on the show today. I definitely thank you so much for coming on. And I wanted to piggyback on two things. One, it broke up right when you said the name of the company they work for. I'm just curious for me to see if I know the company. Did you say Air Products?
Enterprise Products.
Oh, enterprise product. Okay, I used to work for air products. That's why I was curious. I heard the products part. I was like, well, shoot, were we at the same company around the same time? And then what was the other thing I was going to say about that? I was just, yeah, PR about corporations. Yeah, like me working in corporate, I understand that too. PR and marketing is huge, especially in oil and gas, especially where there's a release. We went through strict training on what to do if you had a chemical release.
Exactly.
Like, only let the PR person talk to the media. Do not go out there and talk to the media. You're just going to make things worse. And I think a lot of people like, you know, they see big corporations and they don't really think about their public relations standpoint and how the community acceptance. Like a lot of what corporations are allowed to do is because they have a good relationship with the community. If the community doesn't like them and they start, I don't know if you remember a few years ago when that high rise was trying to build somewhere in Houston, and there was like a group of people who lived in that area who didn't want the high rise there because they thought it would they liked their community or their houses the way it was. They didn't want the high rise. So there were lawsuits and newspaper articles about fighting the high rise, and that's the whole thing. Like, you don't want your community against you like that.
and you just brought it up, like that's how corporations use, PR folks, because it's having that relationship with the community and going out and that warm and fuzzy. People see PR and they think like, oh, it's just, we're laughing and we're doing some interviews here and there, or we represent athletes or some sort of actors, but corporations leverage PR all the time. Like I said, when I was at Waste Management and at the oil and gas company, that was a huge component that we had a footprint in the community, because that laid the foundation for everything that we were doing. And especially when we're building pipelines, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but there's this huge conversation about that pipeline. That's a part of it. Having somebody to go out there and represent, and then also give information to the public, because sometimes it's a matter of education. People have a perception about what they think this pipeline does. And for us to be able to educate them, that's what PR professionals do, especially on the corporate side. So I also want to have a stronger footprint on the corporate. And I'm working with a young lady that's a client also, Landy Spearman, that is opening that door for me. But yes, I want to definitely have that corporate footprint as well. Like you said, those pipelines, we have an unattended release. It wasn't my job, although I dealt with regulators and pulled the information to go out and talk. That was in our PR department, but that's where I want it to be. I'm like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, my first project, I was a pipeline project engineer for the first 5 years of my career after schooling at Air Products. So I actually was the project manager who installed hydrogen pipelines, nitrogen pipelines, oxygen pipelines. I know we had a specific person. That's why I recognize Enterprise, because I know they have a ton of pipelines out there. But we actually had this person specifically in our pipeline group who did pipeline public relations. And anytime we were getting ready to build a new pipeline in an area, she would create the pamphlets, go to the community town talks. Really, because, people hear hydrogen and the first thing they think of is like, what was I just looking up? Hindenburg, the Hindenburg disaster with hydrogen and this thing. I mean, hydrogen is not, it is flammable, it's scary, but we do have ways that we try to keep the community safe. People just hear hydrogen, they don't know how the hydrogen pipelines are maintained, and they, you freak out because you don't have the information, you're not educated in it. So yeah, that's
funny that you say that. I didn't realize that we were not supposed to dig in our yard without calling 811 before I started working there.
Did you hit something? Ever hit anything?
No, luckily I did not. I remember replacing a tree in my yard, and it was like, I didn't know that when I started working there, but people don't realize how safe pipelines are, and you are more likely to have a car accident than you are for a pipeline to have an unintended release. And a lot of the releases that happen are from individuals that are just not educated about what they should do. Like I said, the whole 811 process, I could have hit a pipeline in my front yard and not even known it, because I didn't even know what the little markers were. Like, I saw them, but
you're like, if you're not in the industry, you don't know. So I have all these shirts, 811 call before you dig. Like, I have all these little, do your one call. But it's funny because I did like a $25 million pipeline from Luling, Louisiana, our Air Products plant, to Monsanto at the time. And it's funny when I think about all that money in the ground, I'm like, the only representation I have is maybe a meter station and maybe some pipeline markers, but no one actually sees my pipeline because it's like all like so deep in the ground. I really did enjoy my time in pipeline. That probably was the most fun I had being an engineer, was pipeline project engineering, because it was just so different than doing plant projects. I loved it. But it is a totally new world. If you're not in it, you would have no idea about 811 or what those markers are.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I understand why people are hitting them. But yeah, I just love your energy. I just see, like, I know you've already been so successful already. Obviously, you've been doing this for a very long time, and I just see you continuing to go up. I still need to watch the season of Ready to Love. I had a friend that was on there. I think Edwin Henderson. He was a chef on there.
I saw Edwin last night. So they did Taco Tuesday, and Edwin was one of the main chefs. Him and Shay hosted the event, and so he is definitely an amazing spirit. Yes.
I need to still watch and see who actually came out of there with love. I want to see it. So I need to get caught up.
I will spoil it for you then.
I'm gonna see. Well, thank you so much, LaToya, for being on the show. And I look forward to having some of your clients on the show as well. I would love to talk to as many as I can. Not only that, just help get the word out on businesses here in Houston, notable people here in Houston. My audience just likes to hear different stories. I would love to have a Chef Shay. Especially,
Absolutely.
I would love to talk about some food and how she got into that. Oh, I do have one more question for you. If someone's interested in getting into PR, what do you recommend for them? Like, is it a type of career where you think you have to go to school for it, or is it more of like an experience-based learning, like internship with somebody? Can somebody intern with you, or how does somebody get into PR if they want to do it?
I can honestly say that the experience is going to be the biggest thing. One of the things, because even now I am actually hiring. It's a sad day because my PR coordinator gave her notice, and so this was my year.
I'm just kidding.
But this was my year for expansion, and that was one of the questions that I was asked. They're like, "What are you looking for?" And it made me really sit down and think. But the biggest thing is, a lot of what we do can be taught. A lot of it is through relationships. And so depending upon what sector that you're going into, especially if it's on the entertainment side, a lot of this is on-the-job training, knowing what to write in a press release. They're not going to teach you that in school. You can take a communications class, and it's great to learn how to write. But actually writing a press release based on who your target market is hands-on experience. And so if I had to say anything, I think a degree is amazing. I don't ever talk anybody out of a degree, but for the PR world, it is going to be more hands-on. People are looking for folks that actually have skin in the game and know what it means to write a press release, who that audience is. How do you pitch media? Because even though your press release, and even from industry to industry, a press release on the oil and gas side is going to be a couple pages. A press release on the entertainment side is going to be one page. And it's going to hit the key points: who, what, when, where, and how. And so those things, I definitely would say it's hands-on experience. Internships are great. So if you have the opportunity to intern, I would say do as many internships as you can, especially while you do not have bills. Because once you accumulate having real bills, your ability to intern and get the most value out of the opportunity decreases, because now you're so concerned about having to pay for your financial obligations. But definitely intern as much as possible. People are looking for folks that are experienced. That would be my two pieces of advice. Intern.
Great. No, I love that. And you're so right. As a blogger, I receive a lot of PR press releases. I mean, you sent me some, and but then I've also seen the oil and gas corporate side when they're doing their releases. Like when we were going to build our new plant, I saw the press release they did for that. And it is really just interesting. It is kind of industry specific. And yeah, I receive so many. Sometimes I'll get some press releases and I'm like, what is this actually saying? I can just tell that that person wasn't. Or I'll get what I really hate is the unpersonal ones, or they trying to be personal, but they didn't really actually look at my blog, and I'm like, hey, ShasiesWorld.com. I'm like, that's not actually, that's the name of my site. At least just say Shasie on there. You just literally did a blanket autofill. Those what I was like, spam. It does, yeah. It really is important how those things are written and how they catch the attention of the person you want to read it. Because if not, like when I see that, I'm automatically like, no, this is probably spam.
And that's good advice. So people that are watching, it's like, take advice, especially from bloggers, because these are pivotal people to your events. A lot of times people think media is coming out unless you're opening up a Post Oak hotel or some huge organization. A lot of the mainstream media is not going to come out, and the individuals that are really going to get the word out are influencers and bloggers and individuals of that sort. And so hearing the type of feedback and what it takes so that they can at least open your email, because that's half battle. 50% of it is you open your email, and that introduction is going to be what captures their attention to get them to continue to read on.
And 100%, just like I said, if I'll look at it and I'll be like, you didn't really make this special to me, and nah. But no, it's true. We like, you know, I don't really do as much influencing as I used to, especially with this career change, because like the retail and studying for school is taking up a lot of my time. But I do still love blogging and attending events. And like 2020, I just felt like I didn't get to do anything. Normally I'm running around to events after event, you know, but obviously with the pandemic, so I didn't get to do very much promoting last year. But I love like writing about new spaces in Houston and getting the word out and stuff like that. So definitely keep me in the loop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love your energy. So no problem.
Yes. Well, thanks you so much, LaToya. I won't take up any more of your time this evening, but I definitely appreciate you coming on to the show. I look forward to having you and some of your clients on the show in the future.
Absolutely. I look forward to it as well. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you to your audience for allowing me to go on for this whole hour.
Girl, I love talking. If it wasn't for like me looking like knowing that I want to put it on YouTube later and I don't want to edit like 2 hours, I probably just keep going. Just keep rambling on. But all right, girly. Well, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Likewise. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye. Well, guys, it was so awesome to have LaToya on here. Like I said, I've been working with her for a little bit. I remember being IMN when I first, I think, started interacting with her through as a blogger, and that's just so neat. I actually, PR, public relations was kind of something I was thinking about. I now have a lot of blogger friends that kind of, you know, incidentally ended up in PR just because we were so much on that spectrum of getting the press releases, and we kind of like know what we like to see to get influencers to kind of moved into PR to do that. So that's cool. So definitely follow her, Innovating Marketing Group. And if you want to follow her on Instagram, I'm going to put up the Instagram link as well, innovating_marketing. And yeah, thank you guys. So my next show hopefully will be Sunday with my parents. We're going to do a trial run on Friday, and then I'm going to have them on the show on Sunday. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Bye.